Hello, this is Growling Whispers, and this is my entry into ASMR Requests contest, What ASMR Means to Me. Like a lot of people that I've met since joining this community, I experienced ASMR for years before I ever knew it was a thing. I think part of what makes it so hard to define is that it's always been there, and people have perceived it, they've internalized it, they've incorporated it into their lives without ever calling it ASMR, without ever calling it anything. And since it is such an intimate experience, if you grow up in a culture that is both hypersexualized and obsessed with shame, anything that is intimate and pleasurable gets stamped as sexual and therefore sinful and therefore shameful, so it becomes something that nobody talks about. You keep it to yourself, But that's more about what ASMR is not. And the question I'm trying to answer in this video is what it is, or at least what it is to me. When I think about that, I come up with 3 words: focus, ritual, and expression. Now, my 2nd grade teacher was mean. I mean, she would yell at us so often that was just normal. But I remember one day I had this intense earache. I found out later I actually had a blister on my eardrum, but at the time all I knew was that any sound above a whisper hurt immensely. And so I was sitting there in class, and tears just started pouring down my cheeks. I couldn't cry out loud because that would have been too painful. And when she noticed that I was crying, she asked me why, and all I could do was raise a shaking hand up to cover my left ear. And I remember her standing there, just staring at me. And for the only time that entire year, her expression softened. And she was looking right in my eyes, and suddenly there was care in hers. Now, I was lucky. I grew up in a loving and supportive family, but this was a special moment, probably because it was so rare, but also because of that focus of caring attention when I needed it. And she told the class to take out their books and to read silently, and because everybody was so afraid of her, everybody did what she told them to do. But to me, she said for me to lie my head down on my desk with my left ear up. And she turned off the lights, which made the room feel even quieter somehow. And then I watched with my head on my desk as she opened her purse, rummaged around in it quietly for a few seconds, and pulled out a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. Now, for those of you who are suddenly boggling at this story takes place in 1979, when you could still smoke in airplanes and restaurants, and yes, in schools. And for those of you trying to work out the math, I turned 40 this year. She came over to my desk, and she started whispering. She told me to relax, and she said that she was going to blow smoke into my ear. She said that when she was done, I was to go home and to ask my parents to take me to the hospital. And her voice was so soft and so full of care that I immediately started to drift into a kind of hypnotic half-sleep. I remember hearing the quiet crackle of the cigarette as she inhaled, and feeling the warm, gentle rush of air and smoke as she blew it into my ear. she did that a few times, and the pain just went away, at least for the time being. And then she brought me my coat and my hat and my mittens and shooed me off. Now, I know that nicotine in very small doses does have some beneficial health effects, but I have no doubt that a significant element in what made the pain go away then was simply that I was the focus of that kind of attention, and sometimes that's enough. The human mind is capable of some amazing and, frankly, unexplainable feats. And to be the focus, to have another person devote that kind of energy and time into supporting you and comforting you, can be a very powerful tool for healing. Now, along with that, there is the element of ritual. I was a Christian for most of my childhood, and for the 2 years that I lived in Michigan, I was an altar boy at our church. Actually, now that I think about it, that was also when I was in 2nd grade. Anyway, like most kids, I tuned out most of what was being said in church when I was sitting in the pews with everyone else. My mind was usually more fixated on getting home so that I could, read the Sunday comics in the newspaper or play Dungeons and Dragons with my brothers. But the days when I was one of the ones up there, on stage, as it were, I would get lost in the wonder of these rituals, like the priest doing communion, and just every event, every movement had such significance that it would just hold my attention completely. I don't know why I found such deliberate actions so enthralling, but it really stayed with me. In high school, I delivered papers all throughout high school, and I would get up at like 4 o'clock every morning. And when I would get home, my family would still be asleep. Now, I enjoyed the quiet of those moments, and so I would get my bowl of cereal I ate every single morning, and because I wanted to be quiet, every action, I was very deliberate with all of my movements. Each step, from getting the bowl out of the cupboard to opening the box of cereal to even how I washed the bowl afterward, took on a particular significance. And by the time I was done, it had the same effect on me as grounding and centering meditation. It became my ritual, and it helped me to filter out all unnecessary thoughts. It allowed me to clear my mind and really to concentrate. Now, the final element of ASMR, as what it means to me, is expression. I'm a writer, and I've spent years with this feeling that I am somehow deficient because I have such a hard time writing longer stories. I mean, in college, I would write these standalone scenes for my acting and directing classes, and they were always really well received. But all of my attempts at writing novels or screenplays, they've all come up against the same issue. I can write a tight and engaging scene, but I struggle with transitioning multiple scenes together into something larger. I don't know if anybody else has this same kind of problem, and I'm sure that with practice I could and hopefully will overcome this. But this medium, making standalone videos on YouTube, it really fits my writing style, at least for now. And when I look at the roleplay videos that other people are making, so many of these would not be able to find a place in film or stage or television because of their length and because of their content. Yet tens of thousands of people subscribe to ASMR channels and watch these videos every day. I mean, there's a call for these stories. And whether people are making the videos as a way to gain exposure and move on to film or television, and in my opinion, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, or if they're exploring the boundaries of this medium, ASMR has given many people a creative outlet that simply wasn't there even, 10 years ago. It has allowed us to rediscover a kind of storytelling that has always existed but has been out of favor, if you will, for a long, long time. And actually, that brings me to a fourth element of what ASMR means to me that I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, and that is community. And the internet is largely a mean place. And others have said it much more eloquently than I feel I can right now. But aside from the occasional wandering troll or entitled man-child, the ASMR community is so supportive of each other, so eager to share and to praise and to help each other succeed. It's an escape from the vulgarities that plague so much of our media, so much of the maliciousness that is woven into our culture, or American culture anyway. I don't know as much as I'd like to about the media and cultural failings of other countries. Two examples come to mind, although I know that I've seen many, many more than this. The first was a medical style role play that the Water Whispers Ilse did, where she actually tells you, the subject in the video, how important it is to her that you feel safe, that you feel comfortable with what she's doing. The other example was a supportive friend video that the one Lilium published in January, I think, of this year, where she says in the first few seconds of the video, "Can I please kiss you hello?" And I mean, this might seem like a minor thing to some people, but I was blown away by that. I mean, she asked for consent, and that is so rare, particularly in American culture, where consent, particularly female consent, is a plot point. It's an obstacle to be overcome, and violating people's physical and emotional boundaries is comedy. Now, the ASMR community isn't perfect, but it's different from most of what else is out there, and that is so refreshing. And for me, it is so inspiring. I'd like to say thank you to ASMRrequests for creating this opportunity, and to the other artists for the work that you create and share with us. And to whomever is receiving this, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful night.